Show you how to do the boulangere potatoes. We're going to get them in the oven before we do the chicken. Boulangere is a bakery in France, a boulangerie, and these would have been the potatoes, just like the fougasse we did last week. That would have went into the embers of the bread oven at the end. These are the potatoes you would have put in while everybody went to church on a Sunday or whatever it was, and then came out and got their bread. That sort of setup. So, because the bread oven would have been far too fierce for anything but. Right. Okay. There we are. So I've got the stock on coming to the boil there. While that's happening, we'll sort out the spuds. So this is 2 times your recipe, but a very generous 2 times. And nothing has to be exact with this. It's approximate. It's approximate. I've put what I consider to be rough, pretty accurate with amounts. What did I say? A kilo, I suppose? Mm-hmm. Well, this is a bag, so it's 2.5. But by the time you feed them, you've lost a couple of ounces or whatever it is. Okay, so the first thing we start off just.
What sort of potatoes are you using?
These are roosters again. 1 because they're cheap, and 2 because they're a really good all-rounder. They hold their shape. They make very good roast potatoes, very good chips. I mean, I wouldn't use them for everything, but they're just a very good economical potato. You can pay the earth for them in Tesco's. Yeah. They're always very affordable in Lidl's. Similarly, Asda. I find them very affordable there as well. But if you haven't got roosters, you could use Edwards, Mars Piper, anything like that. I wouldn't use Queens. I wouldn't use a really floury soft one because they'll disintegrate. Waxy one you get away with, like a Desiree, which is halfway in the middle, something like that. But I think these are the best. Excuse me, I've got to wash my hands here. Oh, it's getting there. There we are. Okay, so we've got a nice greased dish. And the next thing we need to do, I've prepared most of these apples. Now, in an ideal world,
it shows we're paying attention.
Thank you. Yes.
That's true.
Okay. Get a wee knife somewhere. Yes, I've prepared most of them now. Ideally, you would prepare them and use them straight away. The reason being is that if you soak them in water, which I had to do because I don't want to stand here slicing spuds in front of you all day, when you soak them in water, some of the starch leaches out, and that stops it becoming such a sort of homogeneous, sort of like nice solid mixture at the end. But it's not really important, it's all right. The important thing is to cut your potatoes the same thickness. So you can either do them on one of those mandolin things, or I would say the ideal size is about 3 mil, about the thickness of a pound coin, something like that. So I've done most of them. In they go. Yeah, well, I've got such great knife skills, I cut myself earlier on. This doesn't make you a good cook, I'll tell you, it doesn't. It's just one of those things you'd be expected to do in a kitchen, really, after a wee while. Because, there's so many ways to cut up, really, to be honest. But it's what you do it by touch. You only think that. Right, onions, I'm going to slice them thin as well. Now the recipe books will tell you to put a layer of onions, then a layer of potatoes, season in between, pour in the stock, just up to the level of your potatoes, with a nice design on top, fanned and all around like that. But, I mean, that just takes too long, really. You're putting the things in the oven from cold. The other disadvantage to doing that is it's hard to actually gauge the seasoning correctly. Whereas, what we're going to do here, as soon as that stock comes to the boil, really, I think it is now, isn't it? Yeah. We'll get all this in together, and we'll let them cook for 5 minutes, just until they're tender. And then we'll be able to taste the stock, the actual mixture, bearing in mind that the stock cubes I've added there, I've added 1.5 stock cubes for 700, twice the amount. I may need a bit more, a bit less, but we'll taste it to see. That's one of the main advantages. And it also means it cooks in half the time because your potatoes and onions are already semi-cooked. So you've only got to put them in the oven for half an hour, really, as opposed to an hour and a quarter or an hour and a half or whatever it is. Okay. And the other thing you could consider doing is if you have a big tray like that, you could set a rack, whatever joint of meat you're roasting, you can just stick it over the top of that and the juice from the meat will run into the spuds as well. But that can be very messy for the oven if you don't get it right. Right. That's all right. All right. That's all right. Right. Just about a wee stir. Just a little stock cubes in. And you want the stock basically to just cover the level of your potatoes and onions. You haven't seen a wee bag of thyme anywhere, have you? I've got some dry. I did have some earlier, but I don't know where it went. We'll have. I suppose I'm going to need a bit more stock, I can see.
There's some of the babies.
Oh, lovely. Great. Alrighty.
What was in that pot before you put those things in?
Chicken stock.
Chicken stock.
Chicken stock. But I'm going to need a wee bit more, if that's okay.
You just use cubes then, did you?
I just use cubes. I use 500 mils to 1 stock cube. What I use. So, I'll just stick another stock cube in there. So we're just up flush there to the top of the spuds and the onions. And I'm just going to add another bit of stock cube to it to make up for the water that I just added. And then you'll be able to taste this afterwards, and if it needs a bit of salt and pepper, great. You could put some garlic in if you want, or just white the side of the dish with garlic, which would be the traditional way. Just a cut clove of garlic. So I'm not adding any seasoning to it at the moment. I will stick a little on top. Right. Oh, we found the thyme. Stick some thyme in. If you've got it, if you haven't, use dried. If you haven't, just leave it out or whatever you'd like. You can just stick them in whole and pick them out after, it doesn't matter. Take the leaves off. But what you really want is a bit of string. Just give them a quick chop up to release any flavour. I don't think I got any string. to the boil. And then we'll simply turn it in there. You have the option of making an attractive pattern on top should you wish. And it goes in the oven. Right. So we'll keep an eye on that. And now we'll fly on with, oh, I need to put the butter in too, sorry. I told you, that goes in with the sauted bread. Nice big lump of butter. Okay, we're going to do the chicken now. So this is a really nice dish, as I said before. Could come from anywhere that grows these sort of things. And you could call it a sauté, you could call it a fricassee, some of you call it a stew if you want. Doesn't really matter. But a fricassee, technically in classical cooking, is a white meat stew where the meat and the vegetables are cooked together in the sauce. So, and there's all these different definitions of things, like a blanquette. I don't know if you've ever heard of a blanquette, yeah. which is a white meat stew, but it's where the garnish is cooked separately and added to the stew at the end, and the meat is cooked separately from the legs and everything combined. And then you have a sauté. A sauté simply means to jump or to toss, and that's where you chop things around in the pan. Well, earlier before we came in, I was chopping things around in the pan, so I'm entitled to call it a sauté, but you can just call it a stew or a fricassee. It's just a posh term. Right. Where did I put that cooker? Here we are. So I took the opportunity earlier on to cook off most of the chicken and most of the leeks. I'll do the rest now for you. I'll set them there. Right, if you don't like cider, you can use apple juice. Strangely enough, I didn't hear anybody complain. So in the pan already, I've got some chicken and some leeks that I cooked up earlier. So I'm just going to do a little bit of leeks and a little bit of chicken. Then I'll make the sauce for all of it, combine it later on.
Is that thighs?
Pardon?
Thighs.
Thighs. I'm using chicken thighs. You can use drumsticks, you can use breasts, anything. I mean, the bone is in it, simply because you get an awful lot more flavour from the bone with the bone. Good.
Oh, the suck the bones.
The bones of discipline.
Okay. I'll just turn that off a little bit. Give me half a second to find the red phone. One of them, I don't. That's awesome. Right. So we have some butter in there. Maybe not all of it. Let's try sort of that amount of butter. A little bit of olive oil. Waffle. I'm using it for the okay. So before I do this, I'm just going to season these as we go. A little bit of seasoning. I'll probably only get about 4 in at once. And we just want to lightly colour them. here. Season the other side. Now, where they're cooking, I get the leeks. Then I go in next. Now, I did the leeks over there. I took the precaution earlier of putting them in the water and running the tap on them and everything. I've rinsed these as well as I can. I'm not going to have time to do that here, but I'm convinced they're absolutely spotless. Okay? They've been washed under the taps, etc. So I'm cutting them into bite-sized lengths, like that. Have a look. That's spot on. That's what we want. Nothing too much. Just a bit of colour. And by colouring them, you're adding flavour to the chicken because of you're caramelising the sugars on the skin of the chicken, and you're also adding a bit of colour to the stew. In the same way as that, if you chuck a bit of beef into a pan of cold water and boil it, it's going to come out looking grey or whatever it is, you know. Whereas if you brown it first, not only will it taste different, but it will impart an awful lot more flavour to the stew. One more. Out they come. Put the other ones in. Season them too. Okay, look. So the other thing we're going to use is some apples. Now we have an option whether to peel them or leave them with the skin on. Anybody got a preference?
The skin on, look nice.
Pardon? The skin looks lovely, doesn't it? I think it would look really nice. The only thing you'll have, the only issue there would be you might get a wee bit stuck in your teeth. But nice. Just give them a wee bit. Not get wrong there. So with these, I'm just going to cut them down the middle, cut them into wedges. Take out the core, I want to be seen. It's easier than using a corer. See that? I would think something like that would be fine. Obviously with smaller apples, you'll have smaller wedges.
Our recipe doesn't say how many apples you use, so how many do you
I'm not saying. Right, well I would use 2 apples per recipe. I'd use 1 initially and then 1 after, if you know what I mean. I might say 2 apples.
No.
Down it says peel one of the apples, but it doesn't say how many you had at the start.
Right.
Unless I've mixed it.
Oh.
No, there's meat getting for myself. That's too close. So any particular make?
Use a firm apple. You don't want to cook it. You want it, strangely enough, eating apples are known in the trade as dessert apples. Yeah. And that can be quite confusing because people think, oh, it's got to be a brownie because it's fruit. But it's not. A dessert apple is an eating apple. Yeah, you want a good firm dessert apple. I would use anything but gala, I think. Gala are okay, but they go mushy. In the leeks, same pan. So you're picking up the flavour of the chicken and everything that's in there. And again, turn your heat. You don't want the leeks to brown too much. You want a wee bit of colour. So just let them go a wee bit there. And we'll get the apples. Whoops. Now just check on the potatoes. See if you've got a boil yet. Very nearly. So we look way up top. Turn them over, so it's getting a wee bit too much on there. That'll be no harm. And ideally you just let them soften down a little bit. In fact, I'm going to slam the apples in at the same time. And they'll just take a bit of colour on as well. How many what? Pounds, did you say? I've just got this pan here. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I should have explained. Because I'm doing it big and without the necessary equipment, I'm improvising. So normally I would have put the apples in a separate pan while this was doing, but because I haven't got the time or the space to do that, I'm putting them in with it. They're all going to go in the same pot together. No, I will be frying after the stew is cooked, because there will be a tendency for these apples to break up a little bit in the stew with the cooking process. For that reason, I'll be frying some other apples at the end to go on top so that it's quick to snack. So let's get rid of these leeks. They're going to go in with the chicken. Just a little bit of colour. We've got a wobbly table today, it's not very straight, I'm afraid. Okay, so I'll put these in with the rest of the chicken and leeks. The last apple I'm going to put in, I'm going to add a wee bit of sugar for a bit of sweetness. But you don't have to. It's all about tasting first and seeing if it needs it. Depends on the sweetness of your apples as much as anything. That's got leeks and all of the leeks and all of the chicken. Because I haven't got a pot, I can't do it in front of you on the stove here. I'm having to sort of mess around a little bit, you know what I mean? So in a minute I'm going to transfer that over here and make the sauce. Show you how to do that, see it. I'm just not sure if the cider's up to any good, John. Maybe we had somebody to try it to find out. Yes.
Is that Bulmer's?
It's the cheapest one in Lidl's. It's Woodgate, it says.
Oh, right.
In an ideal world, you'd use something local like Megan or something like that. But in fact, that's just around the corner from us. fellow called Andrew Boyd makes it in just outside Dundrum in Kilmegan. He won best cider in the world a couple of years ago.
You're joking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, he's just up Kilmegan Road, but there's a church up there, Crossroads, just past there. And we made some cakes for him and stuff. We went up to see him, and he showed us around. But he, fabulous place he's got. He just thought he'd stick a couple of apple trees in, and he said, "What I'm going to do with all these apples?" And somebody sort of half jokingly says, "Try some cider." So he did, and then he put it in the local shop or in a local market stall, and it got a reputation. So he started, and then he got expanded. He's built a big brewery, or whatever you call it, for cidery, or whatever it's called. But it's all stainless steel and all that sort of stuff, and he bottles. He won't sell to supermarkets, he only sells to local shops. He supplies bars in Newcastle, maybe even Downpatrick, and I'm sure he's even bigger than that now. But lovely, really good cider. He does the cider with elderflower in it, which is really nice. And the whole spectrum of sweet, dry, and all that. But
What's the name of it?
Kilmegan cider. And he's on the sort of tour as well now. So you know all the is it Eamon, what's his name, does the tours?
Rooney.
He does the Game of Thrones tours.
Rooney.
Eamon, really, thank you. Yes. They all sort of stop off at him now as well, I think. But and we went there. He's got a tasting room and everything. It's a converted barn, tasting room with a table and all the glasses out and all that. Really
Would you put more apple trees in
and
then?
he
Is it
had
just...
the wee dwarf fella on Game of Thrones.
Oh, right.
I've never watched Game of Thrones,
I know, yeah.
but I know the one. You know the wee dwarf I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's swigging cider in Kilmegan, and they're all the stars are there. So and it's lovely cider. It's worth trying. It certainly is.
Did he grow more trees or a particular type of apple?
He took a stack of trees, but he also went to Armagh and got a whole stack of apples as well.
Right.
So he's, but he has actually grown a whole stack more. Got it?
Is it a particular type of apple? Sometimes it's be unique and you
As I understand, it's the more bitter the apple, the better.
Oh, right, okay.
It's meant to be very tough. I just try. That's it. That's
All right, I'll give it a look.
I'm going to move that over there now because that's too slow.
I think there's an apple called Katie, which is like a red apple, which is very good for cider. But
Katie.
whether that's from here, I think that's maybe more like a West Country thing, but that's very popular in Somerset for cider.
Yeah.
Maybe you can have a cider apple.
So it's not on the fast range, so it'll come to the boil in a minute and sort thing out. Meanwhile, back at the sauce. So we've got a tiny little ring and a huge big pot. And we've got, it's full of chicken and leeks and now apples. So that's what we got in there. Now, we want to thicken that. So you've got options now again. If you're cooking for somebody who's gluten free, you can thicken it at the end with corn flour, or something like that. I'm assuming no one here is gluten free. So I'm just going to, essentially it's a roux. You're adding flour to this. And I'm going to cook that around like that. Stir it in, and just give it a few minutes, couple of minutes, just to take the rawness out of the flour. And it'll soak up all the juices. You can thicken it more, or you can let it down with a bit more stock to get the right consistency. The other thing is to take the lid off and just let it bubble away, just reduce and thicken. But for the time being, we've got that in.
Could you actually put those two pots in the one pot and just swap them all out, right off each other, put it in, and then do that way?
You could, indeed, yeah. You could do it that way. Depends on, I mean, normally I wouldn't be cooking this many in this, you know.
Yeah.
The idea is to let you see how you would do it at home. But in order to feed you all, I have to do it in a big way, you know what I mean? So I have to sort of cut corners. So ideally, you want to fry the chicken in the pot that you then make the sauce in, because all the flavours kept in there in the first place.
Yeah.
You're not going to lose that much by using 2 pots and transferring, as long as you keep
I would
juicing.
probably use one big pot, fry up the chicken to the side, or everything else.
You want a big casserole? You want a big casserole dish? Do your chicken, take it out. Do your leeks, take them out. Do your apples, take them out. Then add the flour to the pot.
Yeah,
Then gradually pour in your cider.
yeah,
Then return everything to the pot.
yeah.
But you've got your sauce then, if you see what I mean. You know what I mean? And then at the end, add some cream. You want to, obviously, put it in your stock here. Now, you should try it first.
I think we all might need to try some though,
Well-
just to make sure that it's authentic, you know.
So-
Keith Floyd, is he dead now?
Yeah.
You did a drink.
Yes, he was a one-off. He had a restaurant in Bristol. I worked with a chef who worked with him.
What was it like?
He said he whenever you could get him in the kitchen sober, it was quite something, you know. But I mean, he spent an awful lot of money. He wasn't a businessman. He went skint in every operation he did. I want about a litre of that, so that's half of that one. Just to roughly cover the chicken. That's about it. I'll pour the rest down the sink later. Well, I don't want to be in the water. Oh yes, they're boiling now. That's great. Right. Just give me a second. Right. So I'm going to let that come to the boil now. So here's what we've got. That's our sauce now. I don't know if you can see that. It's just covering the top of the chicken. You can slam a bit more in if you need to. All right. I'm gonna throw a handful of herbs in.
Yeah, quite.
That'll be the cream.
No, obviously you're not going to have a pot this size at home.
No.
So,
Creme fraiche.
thyme, rosemary, whatever you fancy. I think I would do.
Caesar.
I would probably. I'd give it a handful each. I think sage goes well with sort of apples and leeks and stuff like that. So we'll just keep it on stove. We can lift it out afterwards.
Sorry, what's that? Sage?
That's okay, thank you.
So what do you put in there?
Sage and thyme.
No
Use dry
rosemary?
if you haven't got them. Rosemary would be good.
I'm just talking about the song. You know.
Just remember, rosemary is very, very, very strong. So right, I'm now going to put this over there. If you could. Come back with a sponge.
Francis.
Do you have any sage in your garden?
Right. Now let that come to the boil. Stick a lid on it and we're away. Right, so with potatoes, we're not going to need all the liquid that I put in now, so we'll just take what we need. Never thought the nice sloppy spoon there, right? Oh, we don't Right.
So we're back on the boulangere.
We're back on the boulangere and the spuds are just tender and normal. This is exactly what we want. Now I'm going to drop the mask now and taste this. And so you're thinking salt and pepper. I would say salt. No spuds there.
That's a cook thing.
What's that?
That's a cook thing.
What's that? The salt?
I.
Oh, I know.
You can't
I'm
get
terrible.
immune to it after a while, don't you?
Yes, I have to step away from the salt. Right, so I'm just going to spoon this in. I won't need all the liquid, but I'm just, I wish I had a slotted spoon, but I haven't. Never mind. Yeah, I never thought. Oh, let me mask now. Sorry.
How about you do it in colour, no? And then you sit across the water, you know.
Good thinking.
Wonder, yeah.
I never thought of that. I was just waiting to see how long it took you to think of that.
Thought that was that.
That makes that nice.
No.
Yes, leeks. No, see, no, that's the potatoes
Yes,
and the onions
that's fine.
and the stock. You know, I do that.
Okay. Right, we've got a bubble. So I'm going to turn that down below. Let that take away. That's as low as it goes. Right. So as I say, the potatoes are like that. Just what you want. Just what you want. So I'm also going to add a little bit more time on there. This is dry time. Doesn't really matter. Roughly half the amount of dried herbs to the fresh herbs would be the approximate sort of equivalent. Alright. I need to measure them. Smooth them out. Now, you may wish to start doing all this, where you do, you know what I mean? Potatoes all the way down. I'll tell you now, nobody's going to notice, because by the time you've dished up, if you're serving it at the table to someone you want to impress, you might want to do that. But, and now, if you're happy with the seasoning in your spuds, you want to bring this up just to beneath the level of the potatoes, right there. Just to about there, alright? If you have some lying around, just dot a little bit of butter on top. Some people would add maybe a little bit of Gruyere cheese or something on top. That's absolutely no need. And that's fine. That will go in the oven now. Sorry? No. If I was making Dauphin basil, I would. But this is boulangere, this is simply stock. So the cream will go in the chicken. Sorry. You open the oven.
Left hand side.
Lovely dish.
At a time. Yep, good for kids.
Okay. So we've got the chicken oven bubbling away. Afterwards we'll have to fry the rest of the apples. We've got the spuds in the oven. We're also going to add some cream. And then we can taste it and see what it needs. The cider will add acidity, and anything with cream or anything rich like that, you always need acidity in your food, because it freshens it up. I suspect the cider will be enough. If not, we'll add some lemon juice just to cut through all that. But that's down the road somewhere.